Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. Now it is known amongst the channel that I am not a Windows user if I can help it. I typically use the Linux environment, and my last video on Linux Unreal showing you how to install it has done really well. So one of the more challenging issues I'm going to show you how to fix today is the issue where you're trying to code in C++ on Linux for Unreal and you want the whole compiling thing built in. You don't want to have to do it by the terminal and all of that. So in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. I'm going to show you how to get Rider from JetBrains set up and working, and then I'm going to show you how to plug it into Unreal and make it all work. There's a few little paths that you have to take. That's took me ages to find online, but it's all good. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to purchase your JetBrains, because JetBrains is a paid product. You can use other things to do this, but this tutorial is focused on Rider because that's what I use personally. So that once you've purchased it and you've logged in, you need to go and download the JetBrains Toolbox app. So simply just come in, tap download, and it'll start downloading it. Once you've downloaded it, you'll be left with this app file here, so you can just right click run, or you can move it to wherever you want it to run from basically. Once it's running, you can come into your toolbox and you should see the JetBrains package right here. I've got some updates to run on mine, but that's fine, it'll work for most versions. And you can see I've got Rider, more importantly, here. Once you've done that, you need to make sure Unreal is installed, so please see my other tutorial for that. And then this is where we start looking at your project. So you've got two ways you can do it. You can either go in from a blank C++ project, or you can modify your existing Blueprint project to support C++. So let's go through both options now. So say if I was coming in and I was going to create a first-person game, I'll tap C++ and I'll just call it my C++ test and I'll click create. After a moment of it creating the project, you should be granted with the typical Unreal screen with your C++ project ready to use. And there we are, we have our C++ project. Confirm that it is set up as a C++ project. If you just press Ctrl space to open your content drawer, you will see you'll have a C++ classes folder here where you see all the classes it's created for you by default. But if I switch over to a normal Blueprint project, you'll see I won't have this, and you can't open the C++ side of Unreal if you don't have a C++ project, or at least a C++ supported project. So it's super simple. You don't need to start getting into C++ if you don't want to convert your project, but it nearly always works without an issue. I don't think I've ever actually seen an issue, but all you do is come up to Tools, New C++ Class, and in Unreal 5 at least, it will automatically convert your project over to a C++ one. I'm aware in Unreal 4 this tool didn't fully exist in its current state, so you had to do some more tweaks, but in Unreal 5 it's dead easy. All I'm going to do is just come in and create a dead simple actor, click next, call it whatever you want, and click create. You'll see it'll say adding code to project, and then it'll eventually pop up saying converting project to C++. It might not, it might do it super quick. I've just got a really lightweight project here, and eventually it will convert it over and you will have your C++ file. Just like that, compiling new C++ code, hopefully now converting your Blueprint project to a C++ project. And you can now see we have the C++ classes folder in our Blueprint project. It may take some time depending on how big your project is, but that's pretty much it. So now, no matter which version of Unreal you're in, you need to make sure that Rider is connected to Unreal. So if you come to edit plugins, we first need to install the Rider plugin. So if you just search for Rider, it's pretty much plugged in by default, so you can click Rider and just make sure that's installed. I think there's also some VS Code ones. Yeah, so there's some VS Code, VS Studio integration. Basically install whatever you need. Technically I could uninstall these, but they're built into the engine. After you've done that, we need to tell Unreal that every time you want to play with some C++ source code, you need to use this specific editor. So go to Edit and Editor Preferences. And inside here, if you just search for code, you'll see that you have this general source code editor. And if you come across, you should be able to select any editors you've got installed if you've got the plugins installed as well. So I've selected Rider U Project. You might be able to see Sea Lion, anything else you've got installed, and you should be able to select it just like that. You may have to reboot after you've done all that, but that's fine. So by default, that is everything set up what you need to do. There's only a few minimal tasks you now need to do to make it work. So for example, if you want to open this C++ actor here, or you have a blueprint and you want to get the C++ actor of the blueprint, you can just click the edit in C++, or you can click the parent class up here. And when you hover over it, if it says click to open this source file in whatever editor you've chosen, you know it's a C++ editor. So for example, say I want to look at the character movement in actual Unreal Engine, I'm just going to tap that. And you'll see at the bottom it now says Rider U project loaded, so it's attempting to load it, which is the first good sign. It'll now pop up saying do you want to trust it? Basically for security, I do want to trust it because I know what I'm opening. And you'll see it will start opening, hopefully correctly. And you will see it will pretty much open and you will be displayed with your code. Now it will be a bit laggy at first when you're first using it, because because one of the reasons JetBrains is so quick is it makes a very quick index of all of your files. And in order for the Unreal project to work correctly with Rider, it needs to know about the Unreal Engine as well. So it doesn't only index all your code, it also indexes the entire engine as well. It does take a little bit of time, but once it's done it once, you won't have to worry about it for the entire remainder of you working on the project until you reboot Rider, so it's fine. And then you'll see after it's finished reading all the files, or it's got to a certain stage, everything is now beautiful. Then you'll see after it gets to a certain stage, everything is now colourful, beautiful, and it all works. Syntax highlighting is there. So if I come in and go B has rifle, it'll pop up almost immediately as quickly as JetBrains is and go, here you go, here's the variable you're looking for. It may throw up some errors just here and so when it's still scanning, but it will find it. It's also got some cool features just like JetBrains does, where it will go through your existing code and suggest changes. So you can see this is saying you'd be better adding a const here. There's no need to just specify it like that. You don't change it. Really, really cool stuff like that. It's actually helped me fix some plugins just by JetBrains being JetBrains alone. So what you very well may get when you open it is you may actually see a lot of these projects down the side will error. They'll say something like could not find the engine or could not find the associated engine. They will error in some form when you try to open it. You'll be able to see the C++ class that you've opened, but what you won't be able to do is actually do anything with it. And you won't see any of these buttons active up top. It will just look really odd, like you've opened a single file. And in the newer versions of Rider and Unreal, this is less of a problem, but it may still be a problem. So what you have to do is completely shut down your Unreal Engine, and then you need to go to home.config, Epic, and Unreal Engine. If you've compiled from source or you have installed the pre-compiled version, then this folder should exist for you. If you can't see .config, just make sure you tap Ctrl-H or show hidden files. And what you'll basically see is a list of all the different engines that you've installed over the time. It won't show every version of the engine. So for example, I've had 5.1.1, 5.1.2, 5.1.3. It just kind of combines them into one, but that's fine. What you need is the install.ini. So if you open this up, you will see a list of the different engine versions and an ID associated with them. This is basically how Unreal tells your system where the engines are. So if you go and open up your project, so I've got my C++ test project here. If you see the .u project and open it in Notepad or Edit, whatever you've got, you'll see you have this engine association here. If you've got the error, what you need to do is make sure that this engine association maps up to at least one of these keys here. So for example, I'm on 5.3.2, so my key technically should be that one there. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to come and paste it over this one here, like so. Unreal is sometimes clever and it will sometimes just prepend the UE if it needs it. So for mine, 5.3 is actually okay, Unreal finds it. In the past, however, I've seen projects that have just been empty, or they've had a random GUID in it like so, which doesn't make any sense. And then you'll often see Unreal pop up when you open the project. This project is not complete, would you like to change it? Or it's not, or it'll say something like it's not available in the current engine version, would you like to convert it and stuff? That's fine. Just come over to install INI if you're getting the error. Pick whichever one you need to have. If you can't see it in here for whatever reason, I've never experienced that myself. Normally when you open the engine and you load a project, it adds it into here. But if it doesn't, then I just try making one up. So I just copy one of the existing rows, paste it below, give it a unique ID, give it the path just to the raw engine, and then try that. So for my sake, I need 5.3, so I'm going to copy the 5.3 because it prepends the UE. Then you can add it in engine association and then you can reopen it. An alternative thing you can do is you can right click your U project and you can choose open with, and you can tell it to always open with Unreal Engine or Rider. So I'm going to open this one with Rider, and this is just a quicker way to test it instead of loading the engine up. And you'll see, because I've mapped it up, I can now see my project because I've opened the U project and the associated engine, and I've got a few more bits this time actually. So there we go. So there's different ways you can now use Rider within it, and there we go. That is how you get your project loaded in Rider so you can start coding in C++. So there are a couple of quirks you need to be careful of. The first thing is when you're wanting to compile your project, so say I've made a change here and I've said, you know what, has rifle by default should be true, just like that. You save it, but that's not going to compile the project. You need to tell it to compile it. So what I normally do is I just come to my project, right click, and I choose build selected project, and you'll see it will kick in and start building it. You may get this warning down here that Rider link plugin is required. All this does is give you some more advanced tools. In my defense, sometimes it's hit and miss whether it'll work, so feel free to tap install plugin to game. You will be waiting a little bit of time, but once it's done you should have more integration with the project, but you're safe to just ignore it as well. So you can see it's now successfully built my project, so has true, so B has rifle is now by default true. If I were to load my project up again, the variable would be true in the editor because I've built it. You will sometimes make changes and you very well may forget to save to build it. You'll go into the engine, the old code will be there, just build it, come back in. It's simple. So how do you get from Rider to Unreal then? So some people do just swear by loading Visual Studio Rider up first and going into Unreal. That that you can absolutely do. So at the top, if you've got the engine association set up, you can see at the top you've got a variety of buttons. So you've got your build startup project, which will build the C++ one. Make sure you don't build the solution at the top or you build the engine. You will be waiting a very long time if you do that, because it's got to build every C++ source file for the engine and rebuild it basically. So just try to aim for always doing it on the project or just clicking build startup project. So if you want to load into Unreal, all you need to do is come across and you've got two buttons. You've got the run and you've got the debug run. So the run will just run the code, but it means you can't put any breakpoints in. So if you've got some funky logic and you don't know what it's doing, like I've got an if statement here, I don't know why it's not working in my game, so I'll breakpoint on it. If you just click run, all breakpoints will be ignored. It will be slightly faster to run and code if you've got a lower machine, but otherwise I tend to always click the debug mode because then it will breakpoint on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and click the debug mode here, and you'll see it will start running. And what this is basically going to do is execute all the commands you can see here to actually load the Unreal editor with this project on that you've got open in C++, and it will basically be linked to it. This does, however, mean if you close Rider, if it crashes or you decide you don't want it, because Rider has spawned the instance of Unreal, both processors will be closed at the same time. But it also does mean that Rider can control Unreal and has more control over it and what it does. So I'm going to give this a minute just to open my project so you can see its build succeeded. It has compiled the project again, but now it's loading Unreal. I've just unpaused because it's still opening, but you can see it's loading. All of the console that you normally see when you load Unreal up is being put into Rider just to show that Rider is in control of it. You shouldn't notice any difference within Unreal. It should just work. And now it's opened up. You can see I have Unreal. Mine might lag a little because I'm running OBS, Rider, and Unreal, but generally you've got no problems. You can come in, you click play. It will all click in and work, as you can see. Not a problem at all. And now the cool thing is you can switch between Rider and Unreal really quickly. So I can come in, I can say, actually, on begin play, I don't know why this is failing. So I'll breakpoint on it there. And then I'll come back in and make sure you're on debug mode. If I click play here, you'll now see it's broke on the code here, paused, so you can start looking around. So I can come in and I can hover over things and you can see it can open up and you can look at what actually is in. So my controller here is trying to be cast to a player controller and store it. So you've got the keys down here. So you've got step over, which literally just goes to the next line, which is F8. You've got step into, which will go into the cast, but we don't need to do that because it's a cast, it's an Unreal basic thing. And then you've got step out, which will come out of any code you've gone into. So by default, you're pretty much going to always use step over and resume program. So F8 and F9. So I'm going to come in and press F8 to go inside the if statement. So you can see it's gone in, that means it's passed. And I can see it's declaring my enhanced input system. I can come in and it's hit this. Okay, so I know the if statement is working. I've done some wondrous magic. And I can come in and I can press F9 to make it continue the program. So it'll ignore every other breakpoint and load up. And if we switch back over to Unreal, you can see it's all fully working. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Rider in Unreal on Linux. Super easy to do. By default, it is really easy to load up and get working. But the file association thing is the only thing that might catch you out. They are working on this. There are a few little quirks in Rider on Linux at the moment that JetBrains are addressing from the bugs I've seen. Like if you have an object, sometimes the data of that object won't be visible when you're debugging. So you saw when I hovered over controller, it showed you everything in controller. Sometimes that data won't be there. Just reboot Rider and Unreal a few times, eventually it'll kick in. It's something to do with secure memory on Linux or something, and it's Rider needs to do it. But normally if you let Rider open Unreal, it tends to be more accurate. And then just as I said, here's my Unreal Engine here. If I was to pin this on top like so, if I was to close this, Unreal Engine would close because Rider is in control of that process. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Unreal on Linux. Thank you for watching. My name is Decryption and I will see you next time.